Any of those of you who have been paying attention to emails and other news coming out of the National Party have heard a lot about Cynthia Davis. Cynthia Davis was a four-term representative in the State House in Missouri. She is a dynamo coming into the Constitution Party. She's abandoned her past life in the Republican Party. She's recanted. She has staked her course with the Constitution Party. She's running for lieutenant governor of the state of Missouri, and they have a special opportunity there. In Missouri, unlike many other states, they run independently and can be elected from different parties, I guess, and whatever. I'll let her tell you more about that. But at this time, let's welcome Cynthia Davis from Missouri.
What a thrill to be here today. Thank you for inviting me. It feels great to be with like-minded people for a change. I am very honored to be here. How many of you are my friends on Facebook? Please raise your hand. Very good. It's nice to see a person, put a person with who you are for real. And now when we say things, you'll know who I am too. So I just want to say I am so excited to get to be here, especially after the tumultuous time we had getting here. So apparently you've got a lot of fog in Seattle and in Spokane, and really the whole nation has a lot of fog over it right now. Yeah, it provided us with a graphic illustration. So there was a time when it resolved itself and we did prevail. We got here, and I know I scared the people on the van because I was so happy to be on the van finally getting here, but it is a thrill, and I want to tell you how I got to the Constitution Party as well. 23 years ago, my husband and I were wondering what could we do that would have an impact on our culture for good. And so we opened up a Christian bookstore in our little town of O'Fallon, Missouri. And we ran the store for a few years, trying to help people find materials that would raise the moral fiber and contribute to the community and help people think. And the city government made a decision, though, right before Christmas, to shut down Main Street so they could do a construction project to widen it. And there's no quicker way to get people together than to take bread off their tables. And that's what happened. The merchants in O'Fallon got together and said, what are we going to do? We're in a crisis. So we formed the O'Fallon Business Association, and that was my education on economics and why I sympathize with businesses and what free markets really are. So as a person who wanted to help my community, I went from there to trying to help with the government. I went to the meetings. They said to me, why don't we'll make you the head of the legislative committee? And I said, that'd be fine, but what does the legislative committee do? And they said, you just go to all the Board of Aldermen meetings and report back to us every month on what else they're doing that's going to ruin our lives. So I thought, yes, I can do that. I can do that. And so I did. I went faithfully every month, and I would report back to the business community. And one time after doing this for about a year, I came back and I topped off my report with this. Ultimately, folks, we are not going to change city government until we change the people in those seats. And that was when somebody across the room said, well, then why don't you run? And I thought, well, why don't I run? So I did run, and I won, and I did that for about 8.5 years. But after I got into city government is when I found out the real problem is with state government. And then after I got into state government, I figured out, no, the real problem is federal government. But really the truth is they all have their problems that need correcting. And unless clear-headed people get there and at least provide a conscience for them, we're not going to have the kind of government that we're supposed to have. I was going to ask if Matt Shea was here this morning because I understand when I found out a Republican was coming, I nearly changed the title of my talk. It was going to why you will never meet with success in the Republican Party. And then I was going to have an altar call at the end. Thank you. Because during my time as a Republican office holder, I was deeply invested in trying to reform the party from within. I exhausted myself for years and decades even trying to be the conscience for the party. I was the secretary and vice president of the Federated Republican Women's Club. I was a member of the Lewis and Clark Pachyderm Club, of the First Capital St. Charles Pachyderm Club. I went on from there to be a township committee woman for 6 years. I went on from there to being the chairman of the Republican Party in the strongest Republican county in the whole state of Missouri. And so I have had experience of which I speak. And that was the other title I was going to give Matt Shea, Why It Doesn't Work to Pound Your Head Against a Brick Wall. Because it's not working, folks. Actions speak louder than words. If we could correct the party from within, it would have been corrected by now. This is why the Constitution Party is important, because we're the only people who have principles that are rock solid, grounded in the bedrock of the country. And the Constitution is our lowest common denominator we have, that we all agree on as American citizens. And if there are few who say they don't agree with it, they are on the fringe, because until it's changed, that is our platform. Now, let me tell you a little illustration of why the Constitution is so good. I, as a state representative for 8 years, had opportunities to go on a ride-along with our state highway patrol. And think with me for a moment. What would happen to this country if we took down all the speed limit signs and replace them with signs that say, use your best judgment? On my ride along with one of the highway patrolmen, I learned a lot about how they make judgments, but ultimately it's got to be the law. They represent the law. And likewise, the Constitution matters. So here are 4 things to never say if you get pulled over by a police officer. One is, don't say, I just didn't feel like I was going that fast. Because you know what, folks? It's not how you feel. It's what the law says is what you're supposed to drive. It's not up to us to define what we think is appropriate. Okay, here's another thing don't say. But I didn't have an accident and nobody got hurt, so why are you giving me a ticket? It doesn't matter if there's no accident and nobody got hurt. The speed limit is the speed limit. Okay, here's another thing don't say. Don't say, but I drive the speed limit at least 82% of the time. It doesn't matter because you broke it that one time. And then the 4th thing that won't work is don't say, officer, how about I go back up that hill and try coming down it at the right speed? See, the point is we have standards and we have to stick to the standards. So there was one moment that night when the police officer said to me, this guy has a pretty good excuse. He said he was going to visit his girlfriend and he got lost, and that's why he was speeding going back across the bridge. Should I give him a ticket? And I said to him, well, sir, if you don't give him a ticket, you're going to have to apologize to everybody else you gave a ticket to tonight. Because we have a law. We have laws. And that's what makes the country work. That's what defines our civility. And I love the Constitution because it lends clarity. I just want people to live within it, not invent it. Now, I want to tell you a little bit. Are there any fans in the audience of Keith Olbermann? Maybe. You know what? I this week, when the governor, Chris Christie, announced he's not running for president, he said in his speech, you know, he gets attacked by the comedians all the time. What he really cares about is if they're funny. And let me say, I owe a debt of gratitude to really the Democrats who made me so popular among the left-wing circles because they are now totally obsessed with me. And it was one day when I was writing a newsletter to my constituents, and I told them that I think parents should feed their children, not government. Thank you. And they had a fit over that. They don't like us touching the third rail of politics. But if you think through this with me for a moment, if the public schools are going to feed children breakfast and lunch and all summer long, why aren't we going to feed them dinner? And why don't we buy them beds? And where are the barracks? Wouldn't it be far more efficient to just round up all the kids in the country and put them in orphanages? Because that's essentially what the mockery was over, is people don't like to hear about what government should do and what families should do. And we need to fight against this every chance we have, because the foundation of that premise is putrid, because it's based on a disdain for the good parents and a presumption that most parents aren't good. And we should never let them get away with that. Anyway, I got to be on the Keith Olbermann show 4 times as the worst person in the world. And, and one time on Stephen Colbert. Now, Stephen Colbert was really funny. And all this stuff is still on YouTube permanently the rest of my life. So if you're ever got the stomach for nastiness and vitriol of the left, please be my guest. But I do want to tell you how interesting this was. I was getting ready to leave to come here, and my family was eating dinner Wednesday night together, and we were talking about how excited I am that I get to come and talk to the Constitution Party folks. And there were a few things I wanted to say that were a little bit on the spiritual side. And when you've been in the public eye, as I have been, for 17 years, and you do develop a little bit of you have to think deeply and clearly about every word you're going to say. Because I told them, you know, it might be on YouTube. I don't want to say anything to embarrass the family. What do you think about me saying something quoting scripture? Now, let me say, there are 2 people from the state of Missouri, Todd Aiken and Ed Martin, who were speaking to a Christian audience in different groups, and they said something Christian, and they got mocked horribly for it. The left just had fits. And I ask you to consider this one question in your heart today. How far down have we fallen that a generation ago, well, at the time of the founding of the nation, it was almost a litmus test that you better have some faith in God or you won't even be appropriate to be an elected official. Then a generation ago, it was to the point where you at least better act like you have some faith in God or you won't get elected. And that's why you have politicians who weren't very showing integrity in their lives, but yet they did indeed top off every speech with God bless America. And now we're at a point today where if you mention the word God, that's going to be a bad thing, and they'll think you're a religious wingnut. So I'm going to go ahead and quote this scripture for you because it was very meaningful to me and the Constitution Party particularly. There are a lot of people who have made fun of all of us really because they're claiming that nobody in Missouri's ever gotten elected on the Constitution Party, and that's true. But we're about to change that, and we owe it to them to change that. So in John 21, this is the quote. Simon Peter said, "I'm going fishing." Now that's a very Missouri thing. I know they do it in other states, but that's very cool. And we're coming with you, they told him. They went out and got into the boat, but that night they caught nothing. When daybreak came, Jesus stood on the shore. However, the disciples did not know it was Jesus. "Men," Jesus called to them, "you don't have any fish, do you?" "No," they answered. "Cast your net on the right side of the boat," he told them, "and you'll find some." They did, and they were unable to haul it in because of the large number of fish. Folks, that's what's going to happen when we do what Bob just told us to do. We need to listen to the right source and do the right thing, and I believe we're going to have more fish than what we can handle. I want to encourage you to not be weary in well-doing. We're doing a lot of good things and a lot of hard things. And I've never been afraid to do hard things. What it's going to take to win any election is giving up every waking hour of your day, night, middle of the day, middle of the night, pursuing what matters most and doing it in an honorable way and making a true difference. So the story I want to give you here is actually the words of Jesus. Then he said to his disciples, "If anyone desires to come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. For whoever desires to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. For what will it profit a man to lose if he gains the whole world but loses his own soul? Or what will a man give in exchange for his soul? For the Son of Man will come back in the glory of his Father with angels, and then he will reward each according to his works." And let me tell you, folks, part of why I needed to get out of the Republican Party is because I've been close enough to see the ugly underbelly of it. And they've been selling their souls for years. And we don't sell our souls, not here. There's nothing can be offered that'd be worth trading away our principles. And the other two parties represent money and power. And money and power will help you get elected, that's true, but we're doing things that are bigger and better than money and power. So I want to tell you, I'd rather be in Idaho with 70 like-minded constitutional people who get it than with millions of Republicans who are all about who's going to be the highest donor. Who's going to be the highest bidder? Thank you. Now, I want to tell you the story of the emperor's new clothes because that's going to define what needs to happen to America. And I know many of you have heard this. It's actually a pretty short story, and you can Google it and read the whole thing in about 5 minutes without the illustration. With the illustration, look at the pictures. They're good. Here's what's going on, though. If you remember, the emperor wanted to look really fancy, and he called in these very expensive tailors, and they said, if you can't see his clothes or the fabric, you must be stupid and incapable of serving in office. So they played this charade where they all blocked each other, and everybody said, "Oh yeah, you do look very nice." And everybody knew that he didn't look nice, he was naked. And what it took was when he went on parade through the town and a little boy said the emperor is naked and called it what it was. And once he stood up and said that, everyone else acknowledged he is naked. And he was very embarrassed. And the story proved a major point that we're proving. The Republican and Democrat parties are empty and hollow and getting us the wrong direction. It's like, do you want to be in a fancy car going the wrong direction, or do you want to be in a modest car going the right direction? I'll take the car getting me where I need to go because the purpose is my destination anyway. Thank you. Now, I had to bring this up because this is so funny. Did most of you spend the night here? Raise your hand if you did. You did? Okay. This just, even though it was late and I was tired, I had enough energy for one big laugh when I saw this bar of soap. This just tells you how gullible the masses are. If you can't see this, it has a hole in the middle. And you know what? They're trying to comfort you. by duping you with this. It says, this waste-reducing soap has been designed to eliminate the unused center of traditional soap bars. Okay, so if this is a wasteful because there's an unused center, then what is this? Because you look at this is in the bathroom also. This is the center of this. For real. So if this is the center, then why are they claiming the center here is unused? And that's what we're having to confront during campaigns. So this candidate shows up. This is how candidates show up, saying, vote for me because I won't waste the center. And we're like, if there's something wrong with the center, why did they have the gall to put that in my room? Anyway, I just wanted to share with you that this is where America is right now today. We have to call it what it is. I'm using both parts. I've got to because I've been given a mandate. I was told, the Constitution Party doesn't have enough members to elect anybody by themselves. We have to bring a lot more people with us, and we will. I can't lose my base. The people who voted for me for 17 years need to vote for me again. And a lot of them will. Thank you. When I left the Republican Party, a lot of people got their feelings hurt. And I got some unkind, uncharitable email messages, which were really quite unchristlike, some of them. One of them called me a turncoat. One of them accused me of jumping the fence. I went to a Concerned Women for America event, and a woman told me, if people like you keep leaving the Republican Party, we're never going to get it changed. I'm telling you, there's a lot of hurt feelings because it is a repudiation of the Republican Party when somebody says that's not going to work. I believe the best time we would have had for ever correcting it would have been back when Ronald Reagan was president. And we've only gotten worse since. When I became a state legislator, our state budget was $18 billion a year. When I left 8 years later, it was up to $23 billion with a Republican majority. How does that happen, folks? We passed laws that said you can't be, the Republican Party passed laws that said people cannot be friends on Facebook if they're teachers with students. The Republican Party passed laws that said that you can't, it encroached on our freedom of speech. It said you can't now if you're on the internet and you say things that scare people or make them feel afraid, that's now a crime. And they passed laws that really were way beyond. Now what they just did yesterday, they had a special session and they are going to do a redistribution of wealth for people who do science experiments. How good is that? So they've really fallen off the map. And so, I've got thick skin. Don't worry about me. I'm a mother of 7. I've been spit upon, and I've changed people's diapers plenty of times. I know what I have to do. But my answer, how does it feel, is just to quote our famous Martin Luther King Jr. Free at last. Free at last. Thank God Almighty, I'm free at last. I want to explain the legislators to you for a moment because, again, I've been up close and personal and had a front row seat of the Republican and Democrat freak show. And being there on the House floor, watching it firsthand, viewing how they make decisions and what criteria factors them. They look up in the balcony to see this from the lobbyists, and I've had enough of it. The best way to describe most politicians to you, And next year you're coming in the fall to beautiful St. Louis. And I'd love having you come, because by the time you come, you're going to see the state decorated with Cynthia Davis signs all over it. But while you're there, you are going to see, if you have time to tour, there's a Missouri Botanical Garden, and it's exquisite because it's got beautiful plants and flowers, but they have a pond. And in the pond, they've got these great big goldfish. They're called koi. Have any of you ever seen koi? Okay, now, let me tell you, when I saw the koi, they got the little vending machine where you can buy the food. And then you're supposed to stand there and throw the food to the fish, and that's the thrill. You get to feed the fish. And those fish look so disgusting. They've lost their fishiness. They're like this. And you know, if you want to know what it feels like to be a lobbyist, go to the botanical garden, get the fish food and throw it at the fish, and watch the fish act like politicians. Because they're going for the highest donor. And it's putrefied the system. Now, tomorrow night, I'm going to be speaking at a very elegant dinner. That there is a group of people that this should give all of you hope. You're not the only ones who care about the Constitution. There are plenty of other people who do in this country. But there's an organization called the Young Conservatives of America, and they realized that Missouri, with its supermajority of Republicans running it now, is taking the train right off the tracks. So they've gone through a painstaking effort of analyzing all the bills and matching them up on whether they're constitutional or not. And they discovered 41% of all the bills passing out of the House to the governor's desk are constitutional, and the rest are not. And that's with a Republican-held majority. And with all the unhappiness they've had, they started evaluating, and this was a year ago, before I knew anybody ever cared. You see, people like us don't ever get awards. We don't get plaques. We don't get big recognition, because when you love the Constitution, there's no natural lobbyist group to give you money. Okay, so what we've done, they analyzed all the bills, and when they got done, they looked at it, and last year they gave me an award for being the most constitutional legislator in the state of Missouri. Thank you. So what's special is anybody can win it. All you have to do is vote right. It's easy. All the other groups, and I'm sure Virgil will tell you, having been in office for a while, that the other organizations give you awards based on how well you schmooze and shake hands and how good your hair looks and how many people you know. And if most of the bills that get passed that funnel money to the special interest groups, all the special interest groups that are getting money will give you a plaque if it's a good deal for them. That's how that works. So anyway, tomorrow night I'm going to this Lock and Smith Award to present they give you a great big granite plaque. It's really cool. And what's cute about it is I didn't even know anybody was watching when they were scoring. Now this year, they knew there's a group that will give you a plaque, and you should see the legislators going like this. All you have to do is give a granite plaque, and they'll tune in. So here's what's cute about it. They are actually, there was a lot of anger among the Republican Party people particularly, where they were like, how dare you not give it to my favorite legislator? He's such a nice guy. And he told me he was conservative. He couldn't possibly not get the award. But this is why we need to think, because actions speak louder than words. It doesn't matter what you say. It matters what you do. You can say anything and make yourself look good, but you're not dangerous just talking. You are dangerous when you're sitting at your desk with the voting buttons right in front of you. And if you push a red or a green, that will define my safety, and my liberty. So I want to leave with there's one of my friends on Facebook who has this picture on her Facebook. I want to just leave you with these thoughts because these are from old campaigns, but I brought enough for everybody to have one if you'd like. But what inspired me about Betsy Ross is she did what she could do. And everyone in this room can do something. And she could sew. And using her gifts and talents and contributing what she could, how she could, when she could, she became the woman who made our first flag. And then, this is my other card. This is Dolly Madison. Now, during the War of 1812, it was 1814, and they didn't have cell phones back then. She was left in the White House wondering what to do. There were the military all over, not knowing. What are we going to, where is her husband? But left to herself and her own conscience, she grabbed the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, and an irreplaceable portrait of George Washington, slashed it off the frame, rolled up the canvas, put it in the cart, and within hours the White House was burned to the ground. And in that same spirit, we are all being asked to save our nation's gems. We have gems right now, folks, and we do not want them being burned to the ground, and we must save them. So I want to give you a thought about why we're going to win in Missouri, because this is very special. Missouri is a very freedom-loving state, and I have to tell you, I read Chuck Baldwin's blog, his website, on why he chose to move to Montana. And he said that really Chicago had ruined Illinois, and Kansas City and St. Louis had ruined Missouri, and went through a whole litany of the thought process of how he did that. And I want Chuck Baldwin to call me the day after the election in November 7th, and tell me he underestimated Missouri. This is the most winnable we've had it, folks, for a long time, and I'll tell you why. I am likely going to be the only pro-life candidate on the ballot, and that's very special because we're going to bring up issues, and we're going to talk about what really counts and what matters. And I want you to be inspired with what's on the front of my Dolly Madison card, because I put the 4th verse of the Star-Spangled Banner. Some of you may know it, but for those of you who don't, you need to have it in a card. And I also needed to cover up her bust line because it was immodest. Oh, thus be it ever when free men shall stand between their loved home and the war's desolation. Blessed with victory and peace, may the heaven-rescued land praise the power that hath made and preserved us a nation. Then conquer we must, when our cause it is just. And this is our motto, in God is our trust. Thank you.